Wild West shows. The heroes, the spectacles, the showmanship. The truth about what was next in the real West.
In a past that is now lost forever, there was a time when the land was sacred and the ancient ones were as one with it. A time when only the children of the Great Spirit were here to light their fires in these places with no boundaries. When the forests were as thick as the fur of the winter bear. When a warrior could walk from horizon to horizon on the backs of the buffalo. When the deserts were in bloom and the streams pure as freshly fallen snow. In that time when there were only simple ways, I saw with my heart the conflicts to come. And whether it was to be for good or bad, what was certain was that there would be change.
It's tough to find a spot anywhere in the world where the word cowboy isn't recognized. That proud figure saving the day and riding off into the sunset. But the cowboy wasn't always considered an American hero. As late as 1881, President Chester A. Arthur called cowboys armed desperados and menaces. But history portrays a more romantic image of the cowboy, thanks to a uniquely American form of entertainment, the Wild West show. Audiences thrilled to these spectacular shows, reenactments of adventures in the Old West. In their heyday, over 100 Wild West shows toured the world and made famous a cast of legendary characters like Pawnee Bill, Annie Oakley, and of course Buffalo Bill. These were heroes whose exploits were part reality, mostly myth, but entirely entertainment.
Surpassing in truth, intensity, and instruction, any exhibition of this century. Realistic reproduction of actual frontier life by Indians, cowboys, guides, trappers, and famous buffalo riders from the western plains. Mexicans, gauchos, Arabs, Aztecs, and a detachment of Imperial Cossack Light Cavalry. It's the amusement triumph of the age. Wild West Show Billboard, 1901.
The Wild West Show featured hard-riding cowboys and cowgirls, real Indians recreating examples of their life on the plains, Buffalo Bill and others, of course, engaging in great feats of marksmanship, recreations of moments from history, the attack on the Deadwood stage, Custer's Last Stand. There was probably no element of popular culture in the 18th or the 19th century that was more important than the Wild West Show in creating the modern image of the Western frontier.
It all began in 1883 with the unprecedented spectacle of Buffalo Bill's Wild West. His remarkable show thrilled the world for over 30 years and played to more than 50 million spectators. With the success of Buffalo Bill's show, Scores of competitors were anxious to hop on this unique bandwagon. Pawnee Bill's Wild West, Tiger Bill's Wild West, Texas Bill's Wild West, and of course, Buffalo Tom's Wild West. There was Buckskin Ben's Wild West and Dog and Pony Show, the Miller Brothers 101 Ranch Real Wild West, and even the Cole Younger and Frank James Wild West. Most shows played on the same theme, recapturing a taste of life in the Old West before it vanished into history.
Wild West shows were popular because the people from the East and the people from Europe had a hunger to know what really went on the prairie, on the plains. Everyone wanted to know, is that really what happened? Everyone wanted to see it. It was publicized months in advance. They knew what towns they were going to visit, and the people in those communities saved for months on end to have enough money to go see that show.
I can still picture the night that Buffalo Bill brought his show there and the big introduction, and then came this tribe of Indians whooping and hollering in their feather headdresses and waving their tomahawks and spears, and then in becomes Buffalo Bill and his cowboys, and they would have to fight, and it was terrific because it was so big we could look way down to the other end and see all of the feathers in the lights, and of course the shouting and the war whoops and the gunfire was tremendous.
While each show boasted spectacular, never-before-seen acts, it was always the heroic cowboy that embodied the spirit of the Wild West.
The cowboys were very colorful, very impressive, and how rough and ready and macho the cowboy was, and what wonderful things he could do on a horse's back, how they could ride, and the ropes, the way they could, in a herd of tossing horns on those wild steers, how they could single out one and lasso it. That was a work of art, believe me, in the first order.
The Wild West show traces its roots to the great circuses of the 19th century. Most big tops of the day featured trick riding as their main attraction. In 1843, P.T. Barnum staged a one-day grand buffalo hunt in Hoboken, New Jersey, an exhibition of 15 buffalo calves accompanied by lasso tricks and Indian dances. In 1860, frontiersman James Capon Adams, better known as Grizzly Adams, brought his California menagerie of trained bears and exotic animals to the east. He partnered with Barnum for a series of exhibitions. In August of 1872, Wild Bill Hickok himself hosted a grand buffalo hunt in Niagara Falls, New York. The two-day show featured 3 buffalo, several Indians demonstrating riding and roping, while others played lacrosse. But the man who brought all the elements together in a grand outdoor extravaganza was William Frederick Cody, Buffalo Bill. Cody was undoubtedly a master showman, but he also had honestly earned the right to be known as the Great Scout.
Buffalo Bill was a genuine scout. He wasn't simply a self-created showman. He had earned distinction as a hunter, killing buffalo for the railroad and later for the Army. He had scouted quite competently with the 5th Cavalry, and he participated quite credibly in several Indian campaigns, and finally in the Great Sioux War of 1876. All before he decided he would be a showman.
Buffalo Bill was even awarded the Medal of Honor for his bravery. In the 1860s, dime novelists like Ned Buntline began writing fictionalized accounts of Cody's frontier exploits, turning Buffalo Bill into a national hero. Then in 1872, Buntline persuaded a reluctant Cody to star as himself on stage in Western melodramas. The shows were long on blood and thunder, but short on plot. Audiences loved the show, and Buffalo Bill loved show business. Buffalo Bill's theater company played to packed audiences for over a decade, but Cody had dreams of a far greater spectacle. In 1882, he organized a 4th of July celebration for the town of North Platte, Nebraska. His Old Glory blowout featured 1,000 cowboys competing in shooting, riding, and bronco busting. Cody himself demonstrated his buffalo hunting technique.
It was a great success. And he and some friends decided that you could take this on the road. You could take it around the country. Why, eventually you could take it around the world. And that's exactly what he did through the creation of the Wild West Show in 1883.
This is the best open-air show ever seen. And the real side of the whole thing is, after all, Buffalo Bill. He has in this exhibition out Barnum Barnum. Hartford, Connecticut, Courant, 1883.
We now return to the Wild West shows.
Dear sister and brother, I had a hard summer's work and have not made much money. As my expenses had been big and it being a new show, had to advertise it largely. But next season, I expect to clear a fortune with it. Buffalo Bill Cody, 1883.
Buffalo Bill was absolutely correct. The show's 1885 season profited a sum of more than $100,000. The enormous success mounted each year. The 1893 season profited over $1 million.
Buffalo Bill became, for much of the United States, a symbol of what the American West was, at least the white version of what the American West was. His name was his own public relations team. The name Buffalo Bill was pretty much all Buffalo Bill ever needed to be attractive to the paying public.
Buffalo Bill was the star, but he had assembled a stellar cast of supporting players. The show's program was brilliantly written by PR man John Burke, who had quite a flair for drama and perhaps ticket sales as well. Leading the program were the Cowboys, better known to all who came as the gallant Knights of the Plains. Trick shooter Johnny Baker was billed as the Cowboy Kid.
He can be seen every day with the Wild West, mounted on his fiery little Mustang, riding, roping, and shooting. And any boy of his own age who can excel him in shooting can break every man in the outfit, as there are none who will not risk their pile on the Cowboy Kid. Wild West Program, 1885.
Then there was 6'5" Buck Taylor.
It is seldom the Eastern public meet face to face with one so completely a typical Westerner by ancestry, birth, and heritage of association as this noted herdsman whose eminence is based on the sterling qualities that rank him as King of the Cowboys. Wild West Program, 1885. The cowboy, how often spoken of, how falsely imagined, how greatly despised, how little understood, and how much you beefeaters of the rest of the country owe to them. Wild West Show Program, 1885.
In 1885, little sure shot Annie Oakley auditioned for the Wild West.
She wowed Buffalo Bill. They gave her a trial, and when it wowed their audiences as well, they signed her up. She was the first woman with the show, and the Cowboys and The cavalry and the roustabouts protected her, took care of her. She was a star attraction.
A popular feature of the show was a shooting match between Annie and Johnny Baker. Spectators hoped to witness the moment when Johnny would outshoot Annie Oakley, but that day would never come. In 1886, another woman sharpshooter named Lillian Smith joined the show. She could hit a plate 30 times in 15 seconds and break 495 out of 500 glass balls tossed in the air.
Annie Oakley was a sensation with the Wild West, but so was Lillian Smith, who was billed as the California Girl Shot. Lillian Smith left the show in 1889, ran off with one of the cowboys, resurfaced after the turn of the century as Princess Winona, the Indian sharpshooter princess.
In 1893, the show was renamed Buffalo Bill's Wild West and the Congress of Rough Riders of the World. The new edition was a corps of authentic horsemen from around the globe. Over time, specialty events developed, like a battle of cowboys versus Indians over a giant soccer ball. The Zouave infantry drill team performed intricate precision routines in double-time half-step. The act climaxed when the Zouave scaled a wall using a human pyramid and their rifles as steps. In 1900, James Bailey of Barnum and Bailey purchased part of the show. Soon, circus sideshows were added in the constantly evolving program of the Wild West show. But the centerpiece of the show was always the reenactments of life in the Old West and the dramatized recreations of key moments in American frontier history: the Pony Express, the Deadwood Stage, and even Buffalo Bill's version of the Custer Battle.
The scenario would start out with the Custer Battle taking place, and the Indians would file on out of the arena. And there would be silence as the audience looked upon all the dead troopers. Cody would make his entrance, scout the area, and the lights would flash too late, as if to say that if Cody had been there, Custer might still be alive.
Although the events were fictionalized, Buffalo Bill never referred to his Wild West as a show. It was always an educational exhibition.
In reality, that's, it's kind of hit or miss whether it had true educational value or not. But that wasn't always an aspect of it. And there was a germ of real education about lifestyle, about conditions, about individuals.
The Wild West is genuine down to its smallest details. It is often said that none of the exhibitions we send to England are purely and distinctly American. If you will take the Wild West show over there, you can remove that reproach. Mark Twain, 1885.
Buffalo Bill took Twain's advice and in 1887 shipped out to England for the celebration of Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee. Over 28,000 spectators attended the opening, and a love affair was born between the British people and the American Wild West.
All hail to the cowboys, the Indians on ponies, the rescuers of the Deadwood stagecoach. All honor to the American frontier girls who ride so fearlessly. Buffalo Bill's entertainment is assuredly the most remarkable ever seen in this country. Illustrated London News, 1887.
On May 11th, Queen Victoria attended a command performance. In an unprecedented gesture of goodwill, she stood and bowed deeply as the American flag entered the arena.
Here was an outward and visible sign of the extinction of that mutual prejudice, amounting sometimes almost to race hatred, that had severed two nations from the times of Washington. We felt that the hatchet had been buried at last, and the Wild West had been at the funeral. Buffalo Bill, 1887.
All the world embraced the Wild West. In 1890, the show was even blessed by Pope Leo XIII.
The Wild West show spent 10 of its 30 years in Europe. During that time, it visited all of Europe except Scandinavia, including touching into what's now Russia. Buffalo Bill was better known than any other American name in Europe. Cody had come to represent the American West for Europeans. Buffalo Bill stood for America.
We now return to the Wild West shows.
My relatives told me I should stay at home, but I would not listen to them. We made shows for many, many white men all that winter. I liked the part of the show we made, but not the part the white man made. Black Elk, 1887.
By the late 19th century, most people had only encountered Indians as carved statues or on coins. Perpetuated by the media of the day, people saw only savage killers roving the plains. The inclusion of Indians in the Wild West shows brought further life to these stereotypes.
All we had was the newspapers and magazines and some of the pictures that were gory of them holding up a captured American soldier by his hair, or a woman by her hair and scalping her. Boy, that was something else. When they came whooping and hollering with their war cries through that entrance and went right past us, I was scared, you know, because I thought, well, they could get out of control and maybe shoot some of us or scalp some of the girls. Yeah, we were afraid of them.
It was at a point in time when there was a lot of change in Indian country. The reservations were firmly established, and the male had a whole different role. What he was no longer in existence as a warrior and as a hunter. On one hand, this was a form of employment, a way to make money. Some of them used that way to support their family. But on the other hand, some people didn't like that association because it was almost like parading around for white people or jumping through the hoops for white people, acting in a way Indians should act as far as the white people were concerned.
In 1885, even the great Sitting Bull joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West. He rode around the arena and signed autographs on the midway. Buffalo Bill was known to have treated him with great respect, and his presence was always a special highlight, separate from that of the reenactments in the show.
Sitting Bull's involvement with the Wild West show was in a way an indirect sanction of that kind of an activity, that kind of an involvement. If Sitting Bull would do it, then it was okay for less notable people to be involved in the same thing too.
Throughout the years, more than 2,000 Native Americans participated in Wild West shows, including famous names like Red Shirt, American Horse, and even Geronimo. Chief Irontail, who was a model for the Indian head nickel, led Buffalo Bill's Indians for many years, and later appeared in the Miller Brothers 101 Ranch Wild West show.
Irontail was one of the three models for the Indian head nickel, and Irontail was so tickled about this that he requested that he be paid in nickels, Indian head nickels, so he could go around and give them to his tribe to show him what a great man he was.
When the Indians traveled with the Wild West shows to Europe, they found a much warmer reception than in the United States.
To the European, The Indian is always a hero. He is always a creature who is larger than life, who is more fully realized than the white man in the wilderness. He's a creature of the woods, but nonetheless superior to his white counterpart.
In 1887, a young Ogallala Sioux named Black Elk traveled with Buffalo Bill's Wild West and appeared in the performance for Queen Victoria.
After we danced, she spoke to us and said, "All over the world I have seen all kinds of people, but today I have seen the best-looking people I know. If you belong to me, I would not let them take you around in a show like this. We liked Grandmother England because we could see she was a fine woman, and she was good to us. Maybe if she had been our grandmother, it would have been better for our people." Black Elk, 1887.
Even though the image of the Native Americans in the shows had been largely distorted, the Indians were also shown playing out some scenarios from their real lives.
The Wild West show allowed them to present aspects of their life, scenes like breaking camp, scenes like moving across the plains, scenes like cooking, things that would probably bore a modern audience, but intrigued 19th century audiences. And in this way, at least provided some dignity for Native American people and provided them with good employment.
I joined the show because I thought I might learn some secret about the white man, that I could help my people somehow. I did not see anything to help my people. I could see that the white man did not care for each other the way our people did. That they would take everything from each other if they could. And so, there were some who had more of everything than they could use, while crowds of people had nothing at all and maybe were starving. They had forgotten that the earth was their mother. Black Elk, 1887.
We now return to the Wild West shows.
In the 1860s, a youngster named Gordon Lilly grew up in Bloomington, Illinois, reading dime novels and dreaming of life on the frontier. Like most boys of his time, Gordon wanted to be Buffalo Bill. As a young man, Gordon headed west and lived his fantasy of becoming a true frontier hero. In 1888, calling himself Pawnee Bill, Gordon started his own traveling frontier show and eventually earned top billing side by side with his hero, Buffalo Bill.
When I was a small boy, my mother would read me stories of Buffalo Bill in the Saturday magazine. Everybody had the itch to go west in those days, and I was no exception. Gordon William Lilly, Pawnee Bill, 1883.
When Lilly was 13, his family moved to the Kansas frontier, and young Gordon would finally realize his dream. He became fast friends with the Pawnee Indians, learned their language, and worked as a teacher and interpreter at the Pawnee Reservation. In 1883, Buffalo Bill's new Wild West hired a group of Pawnees to appear in the show. Gordon was assigned by the Indian Commissioner to take charge of them. When the show reached Philadelphia, Gordon struck up a conversation with a young society girl in the audience named May Manning.
She thought I was funny with my long hair, sombrero, and buckskin clothes, and just laughed out loud. That's what started it. It was love at first sight, and I knew she was the girl for me. Pawnee Bill, 1883.
The attraction was mutual. May invited him to a formal dinner party at her home, but he didn't have time to change clothes after the show.
He also had tobacco in his mouth, and it was said that he forgot himself when he was introduced to her mother and spit tobacco on the floor. He made quite a sensation at the dinner party. Everyone was interested in talking with him, but he didn't make a very good impression with her mother.
3 years later, and correctly attired, Gordon and May were married. She moved from the big city to the prairie and learned the fundamentals of riding and shooting. In 1888, Pawnee Bill launched his own Wild West show, and May Lily was a star attraction.
She is the only woman in the world able to break targets thrown in the air while riding at full speed on her Mustang. Kansas City Journal, 1888.
In this exhibition, 165 horses, mules, and broncos, 84 Indians, 50 cowboys and Mexicans, and 30 trappers, hunters, and scouts are used. Pawnee Bill's Wild West far surpasses any previous attempt in that direction and magnitude and variety of performance. Philadelphia Dispatch, 1888.
In spite of good reviews, the show ran into financial difficulties.
It traveled throughout the East and met a long series of stops to visit a town where immediately thunderstorms would break out and they would have no visitation. And it's very easy to end up in financial disaster if you don't have paying ticket holders coming in every day. And that's what happened to him. The show went broke in the fall of 1888. And suddenly he found himself back east, sitting on his steamer trunk at the railroad station going, what do I do now?
But in a turn of good luck, he was offered the chance to return west and lead the Oklahoma Boomer movement, the efforts to settle the unclaimed Indian territory. On April 22, 1889, Pawnee Bill led the 3,500 settlers on the land rush into Oklahoma. Overnight, he became a national figure, a Western hero of the highest order. Then in 1890, he reorganized his show, and this time, attendance soared.
The revenues increased yearly. His notoriety increased constantly. He was able to attract better and better performers.
May Lily continued to thrill audiences, but one of Pawnee Bill's trick shooting acts wasn't as successful.
May Lily held a ball in her hand, and he would shoot that ball out of her hand. Well, the first time that he missed, he shot the end of her finger off. But she recovered from that and went back to the show. But the second time, he shot the next finger off, and she said, and I quit him cold. And then she would tell that story and just laugh.
In 1904, Pawnee Bill added a new element to Wild West shows, which he called the Great Far East. While Pawnee Bill prospered, Buffalo Bill's show had fallen on hard times. Nate Salisbury, his astute business manager and partner, had passed away. And while Buffalo Bill was a brilliant showman, he was a terrible businessman. The show was deep in debt from poor investments Buffalo Bill had made in mines, irrigation projects, hotels, and other unsuccessful ventures throughout the West. One of the most unique and personal moments for Pawnee Bill came in 1908 when he bought Buffalo Bill's show and then gave half ownership back to his friend, hero, and inspiration, Buffalo Bill Cody.
May was against Pawnee Bill and Buffalo Bill becoming partners. She felt like it was a very bad business investment and that it would only end up in tragedy. She had told Pawnee Bill that if he joined forces with Buffalo Bill, that she would no longer travel with the show, and she was true to her word.
The show was now Buffalo Bill's Wild West and Pawnee Bill's Great Far East. Without May Lily, the new tour hit the road with a wildly diverse collection of acts from around the world.
Suddenly there they all were at the same time together, and it's like a good marriage. At various points in time, there were employees of the show from varying countries whose home countries were either at war or poised on the verge of war with each other. And yet here these folks were from these various countries traveling about happily and productively together. Putting them all together made a show that was really spectacular.
In 1910, John Burke dreamed up one of show business history's greatest promotions. This would be Buffalo Bill's farewell tour.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you for your kindness to me during nearly 30 years. The time has now come when the old scout must no longer follow the trail. For 30 years, I've waved good night to you. This time, it is goodbye. Buffalo Bill, 1910.
It was wildly successful financially. The 1910 year especially. The show made over $1 million.
But the farewell tour continued through 1911 and 1912 and even 1913.
He had been saying farewell to the people of America for 3 years, essentially. And, you know, you can hear that so many times to the point where you're going to go, enough already, goodbye.
Revenues declined rapidly. The show could no longer withstand the competition from motion pictures, and unknown to Pawnee Bill, Buffalo Bill continued to borrow money against the show. Finally, in July of 1913, the venture went bankrupt. For Pawnee Bill, all that remained of history's most extraordinary Wild West show was one trunk and his silver saddle.
It makes a wonderful, sad, poignant image as an end to something that had been so spectacular. But it's not entirely the case with Pawnee Bill, because Pawnee Bill had invested all along the way.
Pawnee Bill returned to his ranch in Pawnee, Oklahoma, and he and May happily lived out their years, successfully involved in banking, oil companies, and publishing. Buffalo Bill, on the other hand, never could retire. He was a slave to his bad investments. Sadly, he was forced to keep performing in other people's Wild West shows right up until his death in 1917.
Time smooths everything. Buffalo Bill died my friend. He was just an irresponsible boy. Pawnee Bill, 1917.
We now return to the Wild West shows.
Staging a Wild West show was as impressive a feat as any act on the program. At its height, Buffalo Bill's Wild West traveled with a 640-member cast and crew, 400 horses and steers, plus a herd of 20 buffalo. In the 1892 season, they played 131 locations in 190 nights. The show used specially designed trains to transport the tons of equipment, livestock, and people. They traveled with the largest private power plant then in existence, as well as an oven 21 feet long to feed the giant cast and crew. It was very difficult to make a profit in the Wild West show business. Expenses were high and competition was fierce.
There's probably 120 Wild West shows that I know of. I know there were numerous shows at this time that were, I wouldn't say fly by night, but everybody from Texas Bill to Colorado Charlie to what have you were putting on shows. And all that period, the greatest three shows were the Pawnee Bill show, the Buffalo Bill show, and the 101 Ranch show.
The Miller Brothers 101 Ranch of Oklahoma was the most fabulous of the big cattle ranches that covered the western United States. Big was the key word for the Miller Brothers, Joe, Zach, and George. Not a single enterprise they attempted was done on a scale other than completely mammoth. From agricultural experiments to the housing of wild circus animals and the building of their own personal White House.
At one time, they had 110,000 acres in 3 counties. It was an empire within itself and the biggest agricultural or farm operation in the world at the time.
The 101 Ranch produced and manufactured everything to make it completely self-sufficient, including its own money and its own newspaper. It was while attending a meeting of the National Editorial Association in 1903 that Joe Miller got the idea that the next year's convention should be held in Oklahoma.
Hell's bells. I could show them 200 Indians and cowboys doing Wild West stunts that would pop the eyes right out of their heads. Joe Miller, 1903.
On Sunday, June 11, 1905, 65,000 people streamed to the 101. From every state, editors came and had a good old time as they watched cowboys attempting death-defying tricks and Indians performing war dances. Even Geronimo was brought up out of custody at Fort Sill to shoot his last buffalo from the seat of a speeding automobile.
These editors went back and they wrote dispatches to their newspapers about what a wonderful deal, the 101 Ranch, what they had up there.
In the spring of 1906, the Miller brothers took the show on the road. The Miller Brothers 101 Ranch Real Wild West thrilled the United States and Europe with the showmanship of its cowboys. Cowboys who would later become famous in motion pictures like Tom Mix, Hoot Gibson, and William S. Hart. Will Rogers was a 101 cowboy. But perhaps the most popular attraction was Bill Pickett, the Choctaw and black cowboy who invented bulldogging.
Old Bill conceived the idea of throwing a steer by biting him in the lip with his teeth. And this is what he did. And then he'd throw the steer and then turn loose, throw his hands up in the air and hold that steer with his teeth, and the steer lay on the ground. He had him nailed. Of course, Pickett, when he died, I understand, had very few teeth left, but he did. He was quite a performer.
In 1916, Buffalo Bill himself appeared in the 101 show.
Miller Brother 101 Ranch offered Bill a contract and Cody took it. And Miller Brothers treated him a little bit fairly. They let him take his staff along with him, Johnny Baker and Johnny Burke. And Cody reciprocated by getting into the saddle again for him for one ride around the arena every show.
The 101 survived until the early 1930s, but with losses estimated at $2,500 a day, the show finally went bankrupt. The day of the Wild West show was over. The combined efforts of all the master showmen were finally retired. Silenced with a gun blast, the screams and the war whoops of the grandest spectacle of the age. For more than a half-century, Wild West shows toured the world before they, too, faded into history. Although the images they portrayed may not have been completely accurate, the Wild West shows themselves pioneered an exciting new way of bringing entertainment to people. They offered audiences a thrilling glimpse of life on the American frontier and gave them an even rarer opportunity to forget their own problems and escape to a romantic world of heroism and adventure.
200 feet down, off the coast of Florida, lies a submarine unlike any other. It almost altered